Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Purnima Tokis and I shall be your host today. We are back today with a special Connected Manufacturing webinar brought to you by Dell Technologies, Microsoft, and Intel, and powered by Strategy Solutions. Today, we will engage with IT and digital leaders and solution experts from the world of smart manufacturing for a better appreciation of how cloud edge computing will play a role in driving innovation and acceleration across the value chain, from operations to supply chains to sales. In keeping with the theme of today's webinar, we will start with an analyst perspective into questions like why manufacturing sector leaders should focus on adopting intelligence and automation to help them seize emerging opportunities in the brave new Industry 4.0 world. So now, without further ado, I hand you over to Mr. Shantanu Ganguly, Chief Executive Officer, Strategy Solutions, to share his insights with us. Over to you, Shantanu.
Good day, everyone. This is Shantanu Ganguly, CEO at Strategink, and on behalf of Strategink and Dell Technologies, I extend a warm welcome to all of you in today's manufacturing vertical focused discussion and webinar. So I'm glad to share with you in next few minutes some of my thoughts and insights on digital manufacturing and how does 2021 and the next couple of years look like for adoption of technology and enhancement of technology automation driven transformation in the vertical of manufacturing. So moving forward, I start with a few inputs on what some of the research analysts uh, tell about India's potential on manufacturing and its propensity to grow and become a strong leader globally in terms of manufacturing. So there is a report which was around middle of this year, July 2020 to be precise, which ranks India as number three globally on its manufacturing capabilities. And this is across a survey which was done spanning 48 countries. So together with China and US, India stands among the top three of global manufacturing hubs. Here I have referenced a study by McKinsey, which shows on the left part of my screen and chart, but I'll summarize a few bullet points, which are one, two, three, four on the right. It is about India already very visible globally as a global manufacturing hub, and there are multiple examples of automobile around electronics and electrical, where or chemicals or cement, where there is significant India-based production and global exports happening for India plus global consumption, all based out of India. And we have all the resources, all the capability, and investments happening to grow this to the next levels of momentum and volume. Automation, of course, is fueling all of this. Industry 4.0 and the diverse elements of automation adoption within manufacturing vertical is definitely on the rise, and the recent pandemic disruption, I think, was an eye opener for many to further accelerate pace of automation, adoption of different technologies to compensate for the shortfall of human capital, which still continues in some extent because of enforced social distancing, a limited count of people you can have on the shop floor. So new ways of living and working is what we have all learned, and we have learned to live with it and thrive and move forward without sort of taking them or getting constrained by these new ways of living and working as a limitation. Now, what are couple of indicators which I see as very strong inspirational inputs for growth revival and resurgence of the manufacturing vertical in India? Number one is, of course, I'm sure many of you would have read about this, is Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI index, which has risen significantly in the months of October and November with rising demand and output from manufacturing production facilities, and it's expanded to a level which is an all-time high in last 13 years, 13 years of history. So that's something which is phenomenal. So after the lull or challenge we faced over March, April, May, June timeframe, there is significant revival and resurgence, which is a great indicator. The second indicator here is also the GST revenues the Ministry of Finance government has collected from manufacturing industries and vertical companies over last few months, and this sort of again rose to as high as 1 trillion rupees for a successive second month, October and November. And this data also is a very solid proof point of manufacturing vertical resurgence and revival. Now, what did the year 2020 teach us? The disruption lessons we all gathered. So I've categorized them into three. The first set of points on top left are, I would call them a bit systemic or macroeconomic. And I don't think businesses or leaders beyond a point have control on them. For example, economic challenges will still remain for a few months, if not for larger part of 2021, because vaccines and its effect and its distribution and mass vaccination, especially in a high density population country like India, will take some time. And so getting back to business as usual pre-pandemic situation will take good many months. So we have to live with that. We have to still make the best out of it and move forward. Secondly, new ways of working and living. I just referenced it in my last slide. So that will continue for again some more time. So the disruption we faced in supply chain, in getting access to global suppliers, cross country, continental suppliers, that disruption and I would say supply chain getting restored back to normalcy again will may still take few more months. So you will see an increasing reshoring or within the country capability of sourcing, distributing, and finding as many domestic customers, all that getting reprioritized. So optimize supply chain in the middle box. The points which are of getting focus, getting attention includes optimizing supply chain to make sure that doesn't remain as a constraint. More effective maintenance of machinery, of equipments to make sure there is minimum disruption from an operational efficiency or uptime standpoint. Improved focus on inventory management, because inventory beyond a certain frame of time is costly, and nobody wants, I would say, aging and surplus of inventory. So being efficient, being able to be maintaining an optimal and nimble stockpile of inventory is something every business is sort of focusing on to make sure they are very agile and efficient. And last but not the least, increased focus on safety and health and well-being of all human capital resources associated with every industry vertical, is definitely in manufacturing remains as a top priority. Shifting gears to the technology elements, uh, increased areas of investments, tools, automation investments happening, and that's in all spheres of manufacturing. So, be it in the upstream, be it in core manufacturing, be it in downstream distribution, warehousing, logistics, transportation. So, in every sphere, sub areas of manufacturing vertical, there is continued investment, and that's something which is helping businesses sort of jump back and get back to as close to revival and demand generation and production uh, improvement, and getting back to as close to top line and bottom line growth mode as possible. And in the process, various tools to promote remote collaboration, to tools like also artificial intelligence based AR VR technologies, sensors and IoT, and associated sort of integration of diverse silos, instrumentation, automation, all that pervasiveness, embedding uh, the intelligence, the smart automation across the DNA of the manufacturing end-to-end chain and ecosystem, and then deriving the right data analytics and business intelligence out of this whole ecosystem. The critical success factors uh, lie around how smartly, how efficiently the manufacturing organizations are able to orchestrate these technology based transformation, innovation, and business insights derivement. Having said this, if we sort of try to fast forward ourselves, look into the future a bit, what's beyond industry 4.0? So there is a concept called industry 5.0 which is still emerging, and the early tenets that I see about industry 5.0 is that it is all about, it's about two things. Number one, people and machines uh, finding synergy to coexist. So, and again, there is no direct competition between people and machines and automation here in this space, because both have their unique value. Human intervention and decision making will always remain. It is not at the cost of one against the other. And of course, machines and smart automation improves speed, agility, efficiency, and helps repeat work in a far more efficient manner. So that adoption of core technology based improved efficiency and automation and agility will also parallelly continue. The second aspect of industry 5.0 that I see is around personalization. So increasingly there is a preference of personalized customer experience, and that is also percolating into manufacturing as a segment, although it is far more complex for heavy engineering or automobile or say chemicals kind of industry or manufacturing verticals to accommodate uh, what we call as hyper personalization because of the nature of the business and the complexity of the manufacturing processes. But nonetheless, increasingly personalization to the extent possible is also creeping into manufacturing domain, and that's where uh, focused personalization based on customers preferences, choice, experience, all that will also remain. And that is another strong aspect where the human touch, the human capital involvement will very strongly be required. So these are, I would say, the finer aspects of industry 5.0, which in spite of all the automation, this coexistence and balanced coexistence of human capital and machines automation will continue to exist, and this combination is what's going to take digital manufacturing to the next levels of growth and success. So with that, I sign off from this current session, and I would encourage you to stay tuned. There are a lot of interesting points of view and knowledge sharing sessions coming across on the other side. Stay tuned and enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ganguly, for engaging our delegates with absorbing insights on how they can think out of the box to use IT and digital solutions in creative ways to strengthen business outcomes. Dear delegates, do remember to fill out the feedback form at the end of today's webinar. Your feedback is invaluable as it helps us improve the content, structure, and presentation of our webinars and value conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is a very interesting roundtable discussion with representatives from the software service sector, the manufacturing sector, IT infrastructure solution industry, and the IT market intelligence industry. Representing these sectors will be Mr. Amit Saluja of NASSCOM, Mr. Atul Govil of India Glycols, Mr. Manish Gulati from Dell Technologies India, and Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan from Strategic Solutions, who will play the role of panel moderator. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and I am going to be in conversation with very distinguished and eminent industry leaders to speak about how, as the digital economy is now recognized as one where the intersection of physical and digital worlds results in unlocking intelligence and value, therefore giving rise to innovation and business value, there's also growing realization that the edge really exists wherever the digital and the physical worlds collide. And that therefore, leading to a point where data is securely collected, generated, and analyzed to create significantly more intelligent business insights and therefore business value. And to talk about all this, please join me in welcoming Atul Govil, Chief Transformation Officer and Head of SAP for India Glycols. Atul, welcome. Privileged that you could join us today, sir.
Thank you.
Amit
Thank you.
Saluja, Senior Director, Industry Center of Excellence at NASSCOM. Amit, pleasure. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you, Arjun, and hello to everyone.
And last but certainly not the least, Manish Gulati, Director Corporate Sales North for Dell Technologies. Manish, welcome. Delighted that you could join us. This proves and this promises to be extremely fascinating. Thank you. Gentlemen, I'm given the time, we've got a good 35 minutes of interesting conversations ahead. And Atul, with your permission, I am going to come to you. I would like to establish also the whole narrative about how data, and as the realization grows that it is imperative, there's also the point that organizations, and specifically manufacturing organizations, are waking up to the whole concept of data becoming data capital and therefore leading to business value. How do you establish that fact, given your expanse and the spectrum that you have available as a viewpoint to you? Atul Govil.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Arjun. I think that's a pertinent question because we keep talking about technologies, but then essence is the what where the cream lies is in the data. So just to give you a quick context about manufacturing, because I represent manufacturing, I am part of India Glycols, and no, I just want to highlight that no data has been there in the individual control systems for decades already. But then what is critical and imperative is how to make it work to drive and derive tangible business benefits. That's the basic premise of these new age technologies like IoT, industrial IoT, and this cuts across multiple business verticals. It's not about just about chemical petrochemicals, which I represent, but it cuts across different verticals. But then what as I said, the focus is around, it could be losses minimization, it could be lowering spend on energy cost, or maybe optimizing on the inventory cost. So that's the core focus of how do you use data to your advantage. Now, given the overall evolution of technologies which are today available, and then also the churn in the trained workforce. We see a lot of churn in the trained workforce in these newest technologies. The focus is to create these scalable, future-proof IoT business models, and that's the core. So I just want to highlight that we talk about industrial IoT, so to say, which is a good lever in these manufacturing setups. No, you have these 2-3 critical opportunities. One is improving internal operational cost, so that is something which is very internal to the organization. Second is, you can use it to improve the customer experience or improve provide comfort to them. And last but not the least, in today's age and time, some organizations are looking forward to offer some services, some solutions, wherein instead of having a one-time sale of product, they are creating a connected product wherein you charge the customer with an outcome or a performance-based pricing. So that it's like a continuum. It's not just one transaction and the revenue falls apart. It's a continuous stream of revenue across the life cycle of the product. So these are the broad contours I just wanted to bring on how organizations are leveraging technologies and data to scale their revenue and their margins.
It's fascinating, really, what Atul mentioned, Amit, because that's exactly what I'm going to bring to you. Atul spoke about the need for manufacturing organizations to focus on scale and agility in what clearly is a very hyper competitive market, a hyper competitive economy. Now, in that kind of a scenario, the collection, processing, and storage of data, because that's what leads to intelligence, becomes very, very critical. What, in your ringside view from a NASCOM perspective, is your opinion about this whole value chain of data being captured, leveraged, and therefore becoming capital and a digital asset? Amit Saluja.
Yeah, Arjun. So basically, like we are seeing the shift, correct? And this shift, I'm not saying that it has started happening now, but over the last few years, this big shift is happening from the getting the insights from the data, getting the ability to make a decision to ability to make a decision real time. So that I think that's how the progress has been. Now, just getting the insights is not enough. Correct? I mean, what we are looking for is the real time insight because we need to make real time decision making, and that's kind of and has become much more critical, which needs basically to relook at the current way computing, storage, and everything what we have currently within the manufacturing. Like when we talk about within the manufacturing, there is a lot of use cases like the preventive maintenance is there, condition monitoring is there. Then we are talking about the whole set of inventory that the manufacturing companies needs to manage the logistic, distribution network, everything is there. For all of these use cases, any and the real time every second level decisions is extremely important. We can't afford to have any kind of an latency exist in the system that can actually either create a not timely decision or itself it has to wait. So that's the reason I think we are talking about bringing up an intermediate layer between the cloud and the IoT system, the sensors. Somewhere something should come which should sit close to the IoT sensors and helps in doing certain level of a processing and storage, or certain level of a those data storage should happen, which is close to the source. So that's where I think it is very important.
That's mighty powerful because Manish, I'm going to bring that to you because all of this is clearly converging towards the concept of edge computing and picking up the data where it is being generated, irrespective of how geographically dispersed the locations may be, the factories may be, and increasingly, Manish, as factories and the manufacturing sector become smarter with more connectivity, more connected devices. Where, from your perspective, do you see the opportunities lying for manufacturing organizations to seize today for a brighter and a more intelligent tomorrow? Manish Gulati.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks for bringing this up. Just to give you a little background into this, as you rightly mentioned, data is one of the most precious assets. And since it's precious, it is critical how this data is right from the collection stage till about archived and analysis stage, it's being utilized, right? The multiple stages of that asset that you create for your own organization and your customers as well. Traditionally, most of these value chain activities for data were processed in a centralized architecture fashion, which was more data centric kind of thing, right? Today, as we see with the use cases as well, you and me are a lot more, uh, I would say, pro at creating more data at our own sites, and that's what this data has to start making sense at the edge itself. As you rightly said, IoT and edge are the key things, right? There are certainly when this shift is happening, there are certainly data challenges are there and will be there till the time we set these things right. The first one being the physical distance. Network has a speed limit, right? The greater the distance, the greater the latency. And typically in retail and manufacturing, IoT slash edge applications, your expectation is just 1 millisecond of latency. That's really improvement, a huge improvement area for all of us, right? Second is the proliferation of data. Everyone is contributing and creating data 24 by 7. Every device, every individual, right? As per some estimates, 175 zettabytes of data will be created, out of which 90 in 2025, out of which 90 zettabytes will be from IoT or edge devices. That's about 60% of that data getting created there. Hence, it'll have practical concerns as well, right? Concerns on practical execution is that moving a giant data set in and out of the cloud or data center is costly, complex, and of course impractical too, right? So 75% of enterprise data which we generated outside of data center, how do we make this data valuable for business? That's where our approach for creating the complete solution comes in because all of these three challenges, there is an impact on infrastructure,
Indeed.
whichever way we look at it, right? So that's where we step in, and the couple of things that we can discuss in detail as well. It's a complete workshop that we can take you through, which will cover the various aspects of these three business, I would say, business challenges. I would say, not only data challenges.
Very, very interesting because Atul, now this brings me to a most logical question and one that perhaps is in everybody's mind. Is therefore, in your experience and in your guidance, really, how should organizations view the convergence of cloud orchestration as well as edge computing and therefore its abilities to provide themselves a unified, consisting operating paradigm across diverse infrastructures, really? How do you see that interplay happening? Atul Govind.
Yeah, hi. So I think, as Manish also pointed out, and Amit mentioned about this, the issues around edge computing, or just about the cloud, centralized cloud computing. I'll give you a very interesting perspective that, no, if you were to think through and look at a manufacturing setup, so you would have rotary machines, you would have static equipment, and if I were to deep dive into a rotary machine uh, uh, use case, wherein I have to measure the vibration, I had to do a speed monitoring of those rotary machines, and based on that, create some kind of alerts or decisions on whether I am running at the most optimal efficiencies, or from a safety aspect. So these parameters, no, they would have transients which would be in seconds or even milliseconds, for that matter.
True.
And with higher latency, no, and in the whole data flow, the whole purpose of remote monitoring and the linked alerts gets defeated. So there, the context is that, no, unlike other platform applications, it could be your mailing applications or other intranet applications, the IoT, or the likes, these applications, no, in these setups, no, conventional centralized cloud computing would have, or rather poses severe challenges, as Manish also indicated, which includes high latency in data transfer, lag in the compute requirements, which is a deterrent in the real-time process monitoring and the supervisory control which we are aiming at. But
Indeed.
then, as we speak, now we have these new age offerings which enable a shift from the centralized cloud computing to edge devices of
Indeed.
networks. So this is what, this allows us to do much of the data collation, collection, and compute at the edge level, and then use the cloud for the as a historian, or for the monitoring aspect. Yeah.
Very, very. Thank you so much. I think that was very, very rightly articulated. Because Amit, I am going to come to you with therefore, what is a logical progression question is therefore that you understand extremely well that the manufacturing industry by itself has some challenges that it needs to kind of surmount. But how, therefore, in your view, Amit Saluja, can data collection, storage, and computation at the edge solve perhaps many of the manufacturing sector's biggest challenges, especially in the backdrop of dispersed geographical diversity as well as now a fairly dispersed workforce?
Yeah, sure. So I think I talked about initially the few use cases where we definitely we are talking about bringing an intermediate layer. But I think the why this is all leading to it. I mean, if you see the amount of data, I mean, I think we started with this discussion on the amount of data
Indeed.
getting generated in the manufacturing plants now is kind of way, way beyond what we could have even thought for. Manufacturing, we are talking about smart manufacturing. Everything is getting digitized, correct? There are sensors now sitting everywhere within the manufacturing plant, and especially in the process manufacturing plants, there are sensors everywhere. And the more the sensors, the more the data. We are talking about 5G coming. Now, as 5G will come, the amount of applications on the IoT applications, which will be there in the manufacturing, will also increase exponentially, because I mean people would want to create a value out of this 5G network, and that's where that's again will give a big push to the amount of data that will come in. Now, moving on, and we talked about that we need a real-time decision making. I think Atul also highlighted, Manish also highlighted. We are talking about decision making within milliseconds, correct? We can't afford any kind of an latency. Now, while we are talking all of these, correct, that's where there is a need when the decision making happens very close to the source. I mean, I think we are kind of talking about same point again and again. And let me kind of correlate with this within a banking example. I mean, banking, we always say that FSS sector is the kind of leads with the digital adoption. I mean, I used to see an ad, correct, in the ICICI Bank where an account person comes to you with a tab and then takes all the details with you, and then after that the data gets back to the cloud, and then formally your account is created. Then the other element I think in manufacturing is the security. I think we talk about security because it's becoming a big challenge
That's a nightmare, really, isn't it?
yeah, and the more and more sensors, the more and more kind of data points which is coming, security is also becoming one of the issue. And I think bringing an intermediate layer will also address some concerns there, because things are in much more control of the organizations, correct? Because if there is any breach or anything happens, that it happens only at that place. I mean, it is not actually going to an enterprise server where all the data is sitting. So at least that portion is kind of in a way shielded from these security attacks. So I think it saves money, it saves energy, it helps us in the real-time decision making. I mean, and plus it also supports us for the future when we will see the number of applications which will come in. I mean, very shortly, and 5G is not far away. I can tell you. I mean,
We've been hearing that for a while now, because that's what I'm going to bring to you, Manish. Is therefore, given your vantage point at Dell Technologies, what is your articulation of the opportunities that present themselves to a large swath of organizations that are yet to embark on this journey, are yet to perhaps even understand the value inflection of, well, what promises to be a complex but a significant journey that will create immense value. What is your articulation from a Dell Technologies point of view, Manish Gulati?
So, just before I come straight to the point, Arjun, I just like to conclude with what Amit just said. 5G, while it might be a few years away, full version of 5G might be full version away.
Indeed.
There's some early versions which are already being rolled out, and it'll probably help us in digital cities, connected vehicles, street lights, anything and everything, right? What now that we've defined that edge and its characteristics in terms of metrics, and are we discussing a bit about why we should take care of on the edge compute? It's also about leveraging edge as a platform, as a technology to transform the industry totally, right? We know that the pace of change is accelerating, right? So whatever we do, uh, we need to focus on reducing our cycle time required to roll out these new innovations. That's in cloud, or it's core data center, or even at one of the edge, right? Now, to do this, we need a consistent experience from edge to core to cloud, right? And like I like to say, the order is in order to set yourself up for a change, you start with consistency, right? That's I would say more user experience and more technology experience that the users would like to cater to, right? So when we talk about what's there in store, when we talk about all of these modern edge capabilities based on what happens at the intersection of the physical and digital worlds, we need to make sure that we are creating new business value with these capabilities, and that's where I think I would really like to reconfirm here, right? Dell as an organization has been instrumental across the infra stack, whether it was edge, core, cloud, whichever category we look at, and we have some very nice edge solutions across the spectrum, across the stack, which could be really helpful in creating these experience and creating this utility with a consistent experience across different platforms.
Thank you, Manish. That was quite nicely put, because Atul, I am going to come to you. I think there's a fair understanding across industry that technologies today present themselves at opportune times for industry, manufacturing organizations by and large, to seize those opportunities and therefore create new business streams, new revenue models, new operating models, perhaps transformation by itself. In your view, Atul, with such a expanse of experience that you come with, what cultural or perhaps traditional mindset changes are required? And from that point of view, what is your essential guidance to this wonderful organization, wonderful, beg your pardon, audience that's listening in to us today on how they should approach this journey of capturing value at the edge, leveraging value at the edge, creating sustainable value in a secure manner?
I think let me bring in this concept around. No, we spoke about cloud computing, we spoke about edge computing, and Amit brought that up wonderfully. I think let's also understand that no, one is the latency aspect which Amit highlighted and also Manish brought it up. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a cost to the internet connectivity when you connect to the cloud, and if you have these zettabytes or terabytes of data being transmitted from the on-prem to the cloud for compute and other aspects. So there is this prohibitive and recurring cost associated to the WAN and the internet bandwidth, which is required, and especially to leverage the data, so to say. So what I want to highlight here is, so one is a pure play conventional cloud aspect, the other is the edge aspect, wherein edge by its very term edge is about exclusion of the cloud. So herein comes the concept of fog computing, which is actually a combination of both the edge and the cloud. It brings in the best of both the worlds, and we call it as a fog computing. I'm not just trying to drop names to confuse, but to clarify that no, because no, we have to be conversant with these technology
Indeed, sir.
terms, so to say. So now coming back to the point which you mentioned, I think one, no, just because these technologies are being talked about, nobody would jump on it. So I would suggest, given my experience in driving transformation projects, so first and foremost, no, you have to specify what does and what does not create value for the from a customer viewpoint. So that's the first imperative. Second is whether you have broken processes across the value stream. You'll have to be you'll have to sit across your peers across different departments, sit with them, align with them, that know what is broken and what ain't broken. You don't have to fix everything, okay? So you'll
You
have
know,
to figure that out.
agree.
And then importantly, you also have to make a information and the product flow diagram, that process flow diagram you call it, that you have to articulate first, that know what is, how is the information and the whole value stream flowing. Then only you can illuminate those dark spots and create higher value. You can create faster decision making, and all that can only happen once you have the clear view. Otherwise it will be a pointed solution or a solution which was not required in the very first place. So then only no, you have to you have to start working on. So and from a cultural standpoint, I think, let me tell you, as companies are today facing lower margins and higher competition, and because of this COVID thing, social distancing, remote monitoring, all that has actually, there is a pull today. It's not about a push. Earlier what we used to do within enterprises, there was a push that no, this, let us use this, let us use that. But today as we speak, there is a pull from the user departments. They want to deploy or to see adoption of technologies, so that they can, the work can go on as usual, or rather with higher efficiencies.
With
and
higher
and,
efficiency.
and I would like to just conclude on with one point, that no, though earlier we were facing that the new age employees were far more no, they were more conversant, and they were far more they thought that no, they will be able to adopt technology much faster. I am seeing that no, these cultural issues or these age related demographic issues are slightly getting dissolved, because, and especially I would like to thank COVID, at least for this part, for accelerating the transformation thing across.
Yeah. Thank you, Atul, because Amit, I'm coming to you with a similar question. From given your vantage point from an industry COE at NASCOM, when if you were to kind of mesh together the requirements of industry as a whole to be able to articulate to technology vendors and specialists such as Manish Gulati is sitting here, What would those two or three or perhaps four requirements be that, in your view, if technology were to enable, apart from security and obviously cost continues to be one point that will always remain, that will help accelerate this transformation journey for Indian industry?
Yeah, sure. So basically from NASSCOM COE, I mean, one thing I think definitely we have kind of a benefit is we have we get to kind of meet multiple manufacturing companies and different forums and a lot of discussion. So I think that's where we kind of get to understand what kind of challenges the industry as a broad is facing. And in fact, we are also running a manufacturing innovation challenge regularly, which is a quarterly initiative that we do, where we bring in the broader challenges that the industry is faced, and then we throw it out open at a national level, the challenge basically to solve those manufacturing problems. So we just concluded the second edition of it last week. Now, from there, if I have to kind of summarize what these different manufacturing companies are looking at, I think one thing definitely is the real-time decision making. That is the big kind of a priority, because within the manufacturing, I mean, I think I already talked about the use case about, say, preventive maintenance.
Preventive maintenance.
Preventive maintenance is like any kind of an asset failure can lead to the plant shutdown, which can have a big impact. I mean, you can't even think of amount the cost impact that can be. So the use cases are such where any kind of an issue or a drawback, or I mean, I'll say, failure can cause a big issue. And while you said, I mean, security is always there, but I think we need to talk about security much more than currently what we are talking. People might not be realizing at this stage, I mean, because I mean, IoT solutions have still just start kind of coming in, but we need to ensure that while we are bringing in these new solutions, what are the measures and everything that we are taking so that, I mean, security is kind of not compromised.
Interesting.
Thing is, when we talked about real-time decision making, is the computing power and the processing power will keep on increasing. I mean, the requirement will keep on increasing, because
increasing.
The data, when you said, I mean, imagine right now, okay, I mean, I talked about there are tons of sensors which are transmitting the data. Now, as we move forward, these sensors will not be just kind of sensors. I mean, we're talking about cameras also now. Drones are there. Surveillance is happening. There are multiple cameras installed in the whole big large facility of the manufacturing plant, correct? Now we are talking of transferring the images, and after that we will talk about transferring the videos. Ultra 4K videos. Then I mean, see the amount of data which will get generated. Then to kind of move the data from one place to another place, to kind of do process that data, get an insight, and then transfer back that insight back to the manufacturing plant where the actual decision making will happen. Imagine how much of a networking power we need, how much of a processing power we need, how much of a computing power we need, and I think it is kind of phenomenal. And in manufacturing plants, you always run on a sensors or everything which run on a very low power requirement, correct? I mean, so that's the kind of another thing which comes up. So I think we need kind of better and better solutions that basically streamlines all of these things, make sure that the right level of decisions are making. And I think Atul earlier said perfectly, kind of use the cloud to more just as a storage and as a historian, correct? So processing somewhere.
That was quite interestingly put, wasn't it? Because I do have a view of the cloud, gentlemen. Manish, I come to you with pretty much what promises or allows us, really. One more question, which I do bring to you, and therefore, now that you've heard the synthesis of viewpoints, opinions, experiences, use cases from industry, that such as were really articulated by Atul as well as Amit Saluja. How, Manish Gulati, from a Dell perspective, are you able to give us, or perhaps showcase the confidence that the inflection of cloud edge computing, and therefore the value chain of data capital to data as an asset is realizing measurable gains for industry? Would you be able to share a couple of examples? Manish Gulati.
Sure, Arjun. Firstly, I would say edge isn't just a solution or a product. right? It's a group
Indeed.
of categories of new hosts for applications alongside private, public, and telco cloud. Okay. This requires as much automation as possible. Uh, it, the assumption being that there will be probably not an IT person within 100 miles of the host, right? So as a result, it needs to be fully automated as well, right? It requires a different operating model used when hosting apps on private or public clouds for that matter, or for on-prem solutions as well, right? This needs to be a strategic shift, right? You need to do this by mapping your edge technology initiatives to your business objectives very
Of
clearly.
course. Of course.
It starts with your edge-related projects. It could be your business impacting initiatives, of course. You need to realign them with all of your business objectives, right? So this will need the objectives will change and drive new products or features, which will be again your customer impact will be bigger. So if I look at that, Arjun, and also Amit and Atul covered in their respective discussions, the the need for us to reduce latencies to make sure also to make sure that our data are protected. Security is a key concern in today's environment, right? We can help customers. And as early as today morning, just before getting on this call, I was in a very interesting conversation with one of the very large manufacturing setups, which is in India, one of the leaders in India, one of the early setups, I would say. And while this has been on the cards for some time, but RPA has taken unprecedented importance right now. And very interestingly, I had a good 30-minute conversation, and while we got into some details of the project as well, but that's getting prioritized as number one thing today to be executed in these large setups. And I'm seeing that shift across different manufacturing customers as well as I interact with them. This is prioritized everywhere, right? As a result, when this thing happens, this will definitely create opportunities and issues as well, and challenges as well. Your data protection solutions need to be intact. Your SD-WAN needs to, because it's more segregated, your SD-WAN strategy needs to be aligned to your business needs. So whether it's SD-WAN or it's data protection, which is very, very core, everybody has highlighted enough, including you, Atul and Amit, that security is going to be a critical component of all the data that is being generated.
You can't ever be careful enough.
Yeah, you never can be. Unfortunately, in the last couple of months, if we see, we've seen such a spike of so many large corporates being targeted with these kind of cyber attacks.
Quite the travesty.
Quite a few of them, right? So this actually helps us to look at, actually guides us to look at the right data protection strategy, the right network strategy in terms of SD-WAN solutions, storage needs, and all of this. I think Dell has very, very nicely clubbed it together. And something which I would like to share is DTOD, which is Dell Technology on Demand. You had your reasons to choose different pockets of infrastructure and the way you use them. The consumption models have changed. You want agility in your business, and as a result, you want something that is decided now to be rolled out next couple of hours. So all these things have been kept into mind when this Dell Technology on Demand initiative is rolled out across the globe at Dell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But clearly, thank you, gentlemen. That's pretty much what we have time for, because I think the establishment of the fact that for manufacturing as an industry by itself, whether it is the interplay of operating models with real-time data or connected devices or smarter factories or digital twins, the convergence of edge computing and cloud storage by itself is here and here to stay towards a new, smarter world of real-time operational changes, automated systems, preventive maintenance and repairs, predictive analytics, and last but certainly not the least, enhanced safety and security. But that pretty much is what we have time for in this segment. Atul Govill, Amit Saluja, Manish Gulati, it's been nothing short of a privilege being in dialogue with you. Thank you so much for your time. We are truly standing much the better for it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Arjun.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And for the audience, stay tuned with us. We'll be back in just a moment with the next segment.
Thank you, panelist and Arjun. Excellent takeaways for IT and digital transformation leaders from that discussion, I must say. It was a revelation how data collection, storage, and compute at edge can solve some of the manufacturing sector's biggest challenges, with geographically dispersed factories and distributed and mobile workforce. Dear delegates, do remember to fill out the feedback form at the end of today's webinar. Your feedback is invaluable as it helps us improve the content, structure, and presentation of our webinars and virtual conferences. In keeping with the theme of today's webinar, in our next session, Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer Strategy, will be engaging in a fireside chat with Mr. Xavier Kurian, Director Solutions and Alliances Dell Technologies. In this chat, Mr. Vishwanathan will engage Mr. Kurian in a discussion on how Dell Technologies is helping organizations leverage cloud edge computing and its rich experience in providing a consistent operating paradigm across IT infrastructure and solutions from a diverse set of OEMs. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome back. I am now going to be in conversation with Xavier Kurian, Director Solutions and Alliances at Dell Technologies. Xavier, welcome. Thank you. You could make out time from your schedule for us, sir.
Awesome to be here, Arjun. Really good to be back. So,
absolutely, couldn't have put it better myself. Because Xavier, given the fact that we've got about 20, 22 odd minutes to have this dialogue, I'd like to quickly bring in your narrative on how, from the point of view of this digital economy that we are existing in, that we are functioning in, and that we are trying to power acceleration and change, especially from the point of view of manufacturing, how do you see the whole concepts of edge computing and therefore its translation into data capital kind of happening from your vantage point at Dell Technologies? Xavier Kurian.
Arjun, the fact that data is going to become the single biggest commodity is fairly clear. We're already seeing the early signs of that with the large web techs and the large companies that are collecting data, and that is simply going to continue. The fact remains, however, that the capitalization of data at the smaller end of the spectrum, with manufacturing, with retail, with farming, for example, and I think of farming as an industry as much as
for sure.
The mining of that data, the collection of that data, and the ability to use that data we are still at infancy. As we progress through time, we believe that there is going to be collection. There's going to be technologies to go collect all of that data. There's going to be technologies that are going to process that data and get meaningful insights out of it, to go make manufacturing easier, to go make agriculture more productive.
Indeed.
And to go get that little bit extra from the investments that are being made. We've consistently seen returns on investments on data analytics in multiple organizations that we've dealt with, and it is singularly the biggest focus that we are seeing in most IT organizations today.
Interesting. That's a fairly powerful narrative, Xavier, because it also begs, therefore, the question of how, from your point of solutions and alliances at Dell Technologies, how are you allowing and enabling, therefore, or walking hand in hand with manufacturing organizations, leverage edge computing, cloud storage, therefore data capital, to capture value at scale? How are you helping the acceleration of, well, what is classically and traditionally been a fairly complex journey?
So we realized fairly early on that it's not going to be a one-stop journey, right? It's not something that we, as being Dell Technologies as well, we couldn't do it alone. We started with going and identifying who the players, who the software vendors or the data collection points are in that journey, and we started working with a bunch of partners or alliance partners on how do we go standardize some of those data collection points. Not just standardize, but also translate to a medium that can be analyzed easily. So collecting that data and how to get it into an analytics medium was the first part. And while we were doing that, as Dell Technologies, we put together a solution along with a lot of these alliance partners, certified a lot of those solutions that need to work as an ecosystem. And we we call it a ready solution, and I don't like the word bundle anymore because it's a little more complicated than that. But for what it's worth, what it is a fairly tailor-made solution that is optimized for the function of running analytics within the manufacturing industry. And it's not just about the technology that the IP that Dell owns. It is also about working with 60 odd alliance partners, certifying their solutions, making sure that their IP works well and meshes well along with the with the with the retention medium that we are an analytics medium that we are providing. But what we did is go put that ready solution together.
Interesting, because that's a fairly expansive story. Now, if I were to, on behalf of the audience, ask you to kind of break it down for us, and I'm giving you the problem statement. Within the manufacturing segment, today we have connected devices, you have sensors working here and there. Then you have the whole concept of smarter factories. Then, of course, the tenets of Industry 4.0 as they were. But at a fundamental level, this whole narrative is about data being generated wherever it is. And therefore, for manufacturing organizations to collect, gather, store, process it, and then bring it into the central hub to drive actionable insights, superior intelligence, and so on and so forth. How really is innovation happening at Dell Technologies to be able to help organizations speed up this journey, really?
So, Arjun, and I'll come again with another alliance partner that we started working with, and not one, multiple of the telcos, right? We realized early on that the collection medium is probably going to be so distributed that you're not going to be able to go collect this in one place.
Not at all.
We also realized early on that not all data needs to be backhauled to the data center.
Not at all again.
You're going to have to run some amount of that analytics at the point of collection, right? And we started working with the telco service providers, with the cloud service providers on enabling some of those edge computing offerings as well. And I know there's a lot of conversation about how 5G is going to revolutionize the world there, but I don't believe that's something that we need to go wait for. Connectivity, at least in major cities and primary collection points today, already exists. Most of the country is already covered on 4G, and 4G is plenty for some of that data that you want to collect. So collecting the data and providing the connectivity and providing the compute at the edge was a big challenge, which is in the process of getting solved. I'm not going to say that it's solved already. The second piece that I want to talk about is the point that you brought up, that you've got a bunch of sources of this data. So you've got an IoT sensor that gives you HTML5 based data, or you've got a SCADA controller, which gives you a very different format of data. So you've got these several thousand formats of data that exists out there for data collection. How do you aggregate all of this, and how do you reference all of this? There are solution vendors that we've tied up with that specialize in that single function of translating data. And I'll give you an example of translating data, right? Machine safety, right, was a big thing which we went and implemented some time back. Now, while doing machine safety, one of the big things that we realized is that it's not enough to look at one sensor point, right? You can go and say that, let's say you're working with a cutting machine, and you want to say that it's not going to cut when his hands are inside it. The easiest way to do it is to go put wrist cuffs, and it pulls it back while the blade goes down. But there's also a method of saying that, let's say he doesn't put his wrist cuff on, right? And that's human error for you.
Indeed.
Can a camera look at it? Can a shadow sensor look at it? And it's not enough to just have a camera's input or a stepper motor that pulls away his hand input, or a shadow sensor. You need to be able to correlate all of this data and make a decision in a split second whether it is safe to cut or it is not. And the solutions to be able to do that are already available. They've been available for some time. and the quality of that output, the quality of the accuracy rather of that output is today significantly better than what's possible with human intelligence.
Interesting that you say that, because then I come back to perhaps a question that begs uh, asking at the very beginning, which is, look, there's tons of us folks out there in the manufacturing segment who perhaps are aware of the challenges that they have, and perhaps a sense of the potential opportunities that could lie out there, without perhaps a very, very clear technological and business inflected understanding of how to even begin or commence the journey. How, Xavier at Dell, are you kind of working with these folks to even understand where to begin?
The first step with most organizations is to define the problem statement.
True.
Right? I don't believe that given today's technology, it is impossible to solve that problem. If the solution does not exist already, it's something that we can go and build towards.
Indeed.
Right? And the fortunate part about where we are in India is that that a large portion of these people are within the country. They are present. They are willing to work with newer solutions. They are trying to go build those unique value propositions for customers. And I'll give you an example of one of those. We were working with a small manufacturing plant out in Tamil Nadu, and they wanted a method by which they go and track the fuel in their trucks. Now, in the rest of the world, that may not really be a problem, right? How much fuel is going in, how is it getting used, etc., etc. There's a startup based out of Bangalore came up with a very novel solution to that. Go put in a float inside the fuel tank, and a sensor that measures the distance to that float on top of the fuel tank. So every time you fill fuel, you know how much it's gone up, and you know the rate at which it gets consumed. And you tied it to a GPS sensor that measures distance, that measures where he was driving, what the traffic level was from Google Maps, and a whole bunch of that data got aggregated. The method to go do that exists. It's important to be able to put that ecosystem together, and that ecosystem, I think, is still being built today, right? We're still in the stage of saying that, hey, let's go identify that problem and then go put the solution together for it, right? You're not going to get that solution from one person. One person is going to build the sensor for that relation mechanism. You're going to have to work with a map service provider to go tie that in. You're going to have to work with the automobile manufacturer to tie in their telemetry services as well, maintenance, etc., etc. And all of that needs to be aggregated and analyzed across an entire fleet, so that you know what the status is, where each vehicle is, what the average runtime of each vehicle is, service costs, etc., etc. So there's still those pieces being put together, but it is possible, and it is critically important to come up with the thought process of saying that, hey, I want to be able to do this, and then go work towards that step by step.
Fascinating, really, because Xavier, I then want you to help articulate the messaging and the narrative from Dell's perspective. Is the whole concept of cloud converging with edge computing and therefore data capital? Is it more a data capital and a data asset led story, or is it a more industry 4.0 led story? How would you, from Dell's perspective, articulate that?
I'm not going to say either or, right? There is the data capital is clearly something that people need to be thinking of. They need to be thinking of what more data can I collect, how can I use that data. Industry 4.0, however, is a concept. It is something that needs to happen. We've already seen the early signs of it. We know that it's in the larger industry, at least, we're starting to see significant strides towards it. Um, the one narrative that I want to put out there with all of this is that the technology to go and implement all of this already exists in some form or the other. I talked about going and putting that together for custom solutions.
Indeed.
I talked about going and identifying the solution. What is it that you want to go solve for? Industry 4.0 is about putting that entire process together to drive efficiency within manufacturing. And when I'm talking of manufacturing as a very broad spectrum,
Of course.
not just the factories, farming, from maintenance schedules, everything is
Human safety, for all we know.
human safety, right? To be able to use all of these technologies, whether it's collecting the data, to analyzing it and getting outputs, to go and improve productivity, to improve efficiency, and to get a near-term return on investment. That is what Industry 4.0 is about. It is not about making an investment towards analyzing data. It is about making an investment to save money.
Standing then by that measure, Xavier, then the very next question that pops to my mind, and I do seek your views on this, your narrative on this, on behalf of the audience too, is what is your essential guidance? Because I do have a view on the clock, Xavier, and I know you've got to stop there. What is your essential guidance to Indian industry today, the manufacturing segment broadly, on how they should commence this journey and how Dell's going to be there each step, perhaps, of the way, walking them through as partners in progress towards superior business outcomes, intelligent decision making, and therefore more realization of strategic value? Xavier Korea.
So I'm going to say at this point of time, the first step is to find that low-hanging fruit, right? Find the places of inefficiency that can be solved by analyzing data, right? Fleet management is a classic example.
Indeed.
Maintenance schedules, right? Maintenance schedules, simple. Most maintenance in organizations is done as a routine, right? You don't know whether it's really required, but you do it either which way because
or it's too late.
Either it's too early or it's too late. But you have to do it because if it breaks down, it's going to stop your entire supply chain. What if you could go and make those decisions far more accurately and do it just on time? Is it going to happen one morning? No, it's not.
Right.
It's going to take time to collect that data and arrive at that. But the point to the first step for industry is to go find those areas where it makes sense today. And it's not going to be everything, right? The sensor ecosystem is still more expensive than we really want it to be, right? And the prices are coming down. The bandwidth ecosystem costs are coming down in the country. The ability to go compute at edge is coming, right? To the ability to go collect this data and compute the data at an edge location, run by a cloud service provider or a telco is on its way, right? And it is going to be available fairly soon, eliminating the need to go backhaul all of this data all the way to the data center, right? The systems, the idea is that at this point of time, there are still going to be 20 things in the organization that are still worth and worth it's worth the investment. The key is to go find that one area and to go solve for that.
Standing, because I do have a view on the clock, Xavier. I'm just going to sneak in one last question. Given your vantage point and the spectrum or the vista that you have available in front of you towards industry, what innovation could we expect in the coming months, perhaps the next 12 months or so, that will help Indian industry build more resilience, take more confident strides forward, and finally emerge with the growth rates that perhaps nation building requires?
I think the biggest future step coming is what we call distributed analytics. To be able to take your your analytic requirement and disaggregate that to the edge, to the far edge, to the near edge, and to your data center. To be able to go distribute that, and it's not the technology that exists today. It's a lot. It is possible to do, but it's a lot more complicated to go disaggregate that. The technology is to go disaggregate analytics and decompose it and to make it more real time is where the big steps are coming today, right? And we're going to see those giant strides happen within the next 6 to 12 months. I think the keywords in that are edge computing and far edge, near edge, and things like that, which to a manufacturing company shouldn't mean anything. But
anything at all.
But what it will mean for them is the ability to get more real-time analytics, right? To get a decision faster. The other piece that's developing very rapidly is artificial intelligence.
Oh yes.
The ability to get a machine make a decision for you and execute on that decision is something that is again growing in leaps and bounds. There are going to be giant strides in it in the next in the next year, I would say, probably less. And that's going to change the way manufacturing runs their decision-making processes at their various locations. So,
and that would equally require industry by itself to also evolve its thought process, evolve its mindsets. Are you seeing that happening, Xavier, now that you're working so closely with tons of them?
I think the thought process and the maturity in Indian industry already exists, right? There is, I'll be honest, I've always admired the foresight and the ability to think forward that Indian industry leaders have. Most of the CTOs that I speak to have got active projects in place to go and think about what they can do in that light. The key is going to be taking those baby steps, right? To go find that 1-2 places that you want to go make that investment, and don't make it if it's not going to give a return, right? Find those places that are going to give a 10x, 20x return, and make those investments. Identify where the problems are, identify how to go distribute to your analytics, and set yourself up for 2 years from now. I think the foresight in Indian industry more than exists. In fact, I think it's better than most of the rest of the world.
One last question, and I am being greedy. I realize that 3 keywords when it comes to the convergence of cloud and edge computing, 3 keywords apart from real time, what would they be, Xavier Kurian, for our audience to take back?
Distributed analytics, artificial intelligence, and edge.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Xavier Kurian, Director Solutions and Alliances at Dell Technologies. Xavier, it's been nothing short of a delight speaking with you as always. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Arjun, and it's always nice talking to you as well.
That was a truly insightful deep dive. Thank you, Mr. Kurian and Mr. Vishwanathan, for your valuable views and guidance. Dear delegates, before we formally conclude today's webinar, do please fill out the feedback form and share your ratings about today's webinar. That's all we have for you. We hope you enjoyed this Manufacturing Solutions webinar we brought to you today. On behalf of Dell Technologies, Microsoft, Intel, and Strategic Solutions, I thank you for attending and our panelists and expert speakers for enriching us with the experiences and insights. We look forward to you joining us for our next webinar. Take care, stay safe, and may intelligent infused manufacturing help your organization go places. This is Purnima Tokas signing off on behalf of Strategic Solutions.